So hey Darren, hey, congratulations on your latest project, A Sugar and Spice Holiday.
No, thank you, thank you. It was a really fun project to be involved with. I think so.
So
Yeah,
what brought you on board for something like that for the Lifetime channel?
they actually found me. To be perfectly honest, so Jennifer Lau, the director, I think, so she told that we had met like eons ago, like maybe like 8, 9, 10 years ago at a film festival or something like that. But I think that we had been kind of hovering around each other's circles. Um, and I have a feeling, this is my suspicion, but they were looking kind of for for Asian creative leads, and I think my name somehow got thrown into the hat, and they offered me a job. So I'm like, hey, I'm not. It's COVID time. It was a little bit light, so I'm like, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, that's true. I just realized because the film actually brags about that. It is like one of the Asian Christmas movies out there with an all Asian
Yeah.
cast. So it does actually make sense.
Well, and I think for Lifetime, they took particular, I think they're really proud of the fact that, it's an Asian storyline, it's an Asian cast, but also, I think so often in film and television, people are really focused on, and not to downplay actors or anything like that. Obviously, really important, it's what we see, but I think there's so much more to making a movie than just the actors, and to focus on the behind the camera talent is really important as well too.
Absolutely. Well, for it being a Christmas movie, how did you want to approach, this type of movie without going overboard, with Christmas themes or something like that?
Well, I think it's twofold, because I think that first of all, let's call a spade a spade. It's a Lifetime Christmas movie, right? And I think that there's a certain sort of expectation that it's going to be a Christmas movie. Like, you got to sound like Christmas, but you're right. You can't go overboard. And I think it's a romantic comedy, and I think there's a very, I think there's two ways of scoring comedy. I think you can either score, you can kind of like tell you the word to laugh, tell the audience where to laugh, or you can just kind of play it straight. And I think the kind of comedy that I like, tends to be the stuff that's a little bit more subtle, right? And it's just like, the funniness comes from the awkwardness, or from the awkwardness of the situation, and not with ha ha ha, this is funny music, right? One of the things that we had to also do is find a subtle way of kind of bringing in sort of the Chinese influence, right? So with Nema's theme, the grandma theme, it was, it's still very much, again, like I said, it's very much a Lifetime Christmas rom-com, right? So it's got to fall into the archetype, and you don't want to be like shouting out like, Chinese film, Chinese film, Chinese film. And so you're finding that right balance of finding just a little bit of hint of that Chinese flair. One of the things that I think that is really interesting about that is that I can very much relate to the characters, because I'm Chinese Canadian anyways, and sort of that first generation Chinese, first generation Chinese, Chinese, he's living first generation. You know what I'm trying to say? First generation Chinese Canadian there, and I think a lot of the struggles that Susie, a lot of the drama between Susie and her parents and her identity and all of that stuff, something that I can really relate to, and almost the sound of the music at one point is like what is that first generation Chinese American, Chinese Canadian sound, right? Like, what is that? You're the first generation not to have come from overseas, and I really think that the music that we came up with for this film represents that. It's very heavily rooted, Western, in sort of the Western traditions, but with a strong flavor of China, recognizing your roots and where it comes from.
Yeah, I actually noticed because there's a lot of melodies in the background that you actually came up with. A lot of piano melodies that you can actually come up with. Is that what you're going for, right?
I think so. It's kind of a joke, because a running joke. Whenever I do a lot of jury work, and whenever a Chinese jury work, like a jury for composing competitions or whatnot, and whenever I have to interview someone, if there's someone with of Chinese heritage or descent, I just to break the ice, go, so what was it, piano, violin, or cello, right? I just as a joke to break the ice. Be that we all probably were forced to do music lessons as a kid. I'm a piano player. That piano actually behind me is actually the piano that I grew up playing on. It's something that I took to LA with me from Canada, and I guess by nature of who I am as a musician and as a composer, I tend to write very piano centric scores. Um, so yeah, that's and I guess that's just something that shows up in my music. It also works really well for rom-coms too. So
Absolutely. That's actually great. So Darren, I watched the film, and I think there was only, I want to say, one score that was closest to being very Christmassy, because it's the one where I think you used like a bicycle bell or something like that.
that's funny, because that was actually a licensed cue. Actually, that was that was not my music. So it's funny that you say that it doesn't sound too Christmassy, because I feel like it's very Christmassy. Uh, it doesn't quote any Christmas carols or anything like that, but it's kind of got that excitement. It's got that jovialness. It's got that happiness. It's got a lot of motion to, like, I mean, listen, and here, and do you mind if I just play something
Yeah,
that
go
you
for
don't
it.
hear?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, a lot, that's kind of one of the main themes that we have, and 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 I don't know. I guess in my mind, it's just like, what you think about, what is a Chris what is a happy Christmas carol, right? What is a happy Christmas song that you don't, but you want to put your own spin on it, and it's again those elements, like, happiness. You've got some sort of fast, you've got some motion to it. You've got, it's happy and festive, right? And I guess before there was we had a very compressed time period to work on this film. It was 3 weeks, to get about 60 minutes of music done, which is fast. It's a very fast turnaround time. And so I spent a lot of time just kind of, before we got Locked Picture, just kind of working on themes, kind of knowing what the film was about, knowing that we want to have a little bit of hint of Asian stuff, and that theme there doesn't have any Asian theme, but the other kind of notable theme in Neva's theme, which is kind of, so you've got a little bit of just enough hint of that Chinese-ness there that kind of brings you in. And again, like, if you go back to that, what is the Chinese American sound, or what is the sound of the first generation? I think it's definitely Western. It's definitely, rooted in this culture, but it's also pays homage, and it's unmistakably Chinese, right? And so that's something, and just to be clear, like, when I'm writing this, I'm not thinking like, "Oh, how can I be unmistakably be this?" And it just sort of comes, right? But like, when you think about that, like, when you step back and then you go listen to everything, you go like, "Yeah, that really works really well." And I think that a lot of my composer colleague friends, or just a lot of my friends in general who watched the film, have mentioned, like, that was really, it was really neat. It was subtle. It worked so well, because it was exactly that, right? It was that theme that's rooted in, it's clearly a Western film score. It's got a little hint of Chineseness, but it's unmistakable, right? So.
Well, you know what? You managed to unlock it, so so that's
Oh,
great.
thanks, thank you, gang, thank you.
Hey, so tell me, what's it like scoring this during the pandemic? I mean, as I guess, typically as a musician, it's no different, right? Because you're always in your studio.
Pretty much. I mean, I mean, just by nature of the kind of project this was, like in terms of the time and budget level, this wasn't something we were going to go bring in an orchestra and write. So this is all done remotely. Um, so really, quite frankly, in the pandemic, there was not a whole lot different. I mean, you know, I maybe would have made an effort to have sat down in person with the executive producer, with Nancy, to do the spotting, to like just go say like, hey, where do you want music here, where do you want music there? But we've actually had, it's actually incredible how well they're set up to do it virtually, and I think if anything, screen composers, just by nature of what we do, is really, I mean, we were really well set up to do for the pandemic already. A lot of people who record, they record, one or two musicians are set up to do that remotely in their house. They have the microphones, they have the recording gear, and if anything, the pandemic expedited for a lot of musicians something that, pushing them in a direction that they want to do further. But again, long story short, I don't think that there's a whole lot, a whole lot of different things. We just kind of did what we needed to do here and moved forward. So
I'm under the presumption, because the fact that you're already safe in your own studio, the work just constantly keep coming forward. It's probably about the same. It doesn't really slow down on the music side, right?
um, so if you were to ask me before this gig, I would have told you that January, February, March was going to be, or around now we'd be slow, because that the production pipeline kind of trickled and stopped, and especially with stuff from the all the pre-COVID stuff was all the pre-COVID stuff had kind of slowly come to a stop, right? But I'm busy. Like I thought December was going to be like a really light month, and it was I had 3 projects in December. It was like, it was my busiest month, and granted, some of them weren't 100% film projects, right? And some of them were actually 2 of them are actually sort of I do a lot of arranging orchestra charts for pop songs, right? And so these 2, I have 2 projects actually back up in Canada with doing sort of pop arrangements for orchestra for these artists, and they're all sort of these COVID style virtual concerts, right? For a lack of, I'm not doing it justice by calling them that, but for brevity, I'll just say that's what they are. And so yeah, in terms of film stuff, we're seeing what's happening. I don't know if I'm going to get some more film stuff coming up for a little bit, maybe in a couple of months. But I think that as production starts to ramp up again, people are finding creative ways to get back into the game.
How do you handle orchestra stuff virtually? That's quite a feat.
So if you're doing live orchestra stuff, you know, you have to first of all, you have to find a place that's willing to do it live, right? And I think that, I had done a project earlier, in the pandemic, like, in the summertime, and I've gone to the Czech Republic, to Prague, and normally what I would do, that I have to fly over there and I would conduct the session, produce the session, and then so here what we do, that we actually do what's called a source connect, right? And what that is that I can monitor the recording session with very good audio, over the internet. And then what's interesting is that I give notes over text message, like over like Skype or WhatsApp, and the conductor actually sees my notes in real time, which is interesting, because if I was there in person and if I wasn't conducting, we'd have to wait till we'd have to wait till the break in the orchestra, and then, or the orchestra stopped playing, and then I'd say, hey, measure 43, do this or do that. But with sort of this sort of text thing, I can do it right away, and he sees it in the screen, and there's no ambiguity. So the big joke with my contractor in Prague was, don't tell Gifty, don't tell my wife how well this works, because she'll never let me come to Prague again, right? So I think I think can you, sorry, I think my audio just kind of popped up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you just fine.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I saw you laughing and I didn't hear anything, so that's why I was. Um, I think there, again, like I said, like and doing the Source Connect stuff with live orchestras has been, that's been happening pre-pandemic, right? Because a lot of people just don't have the, it's a little bit of a hike to go to Europe or to go to wherever you're recording there, and even people locally in LA, like if they're working with a musician and they just want to, they don't, they're set up to do their own recording, but they want to be involved, but they don't want to take the hour drive to someone's place. The Source Connect stuff works really well. So
Excellent. Well, let's talk a little bit about you. How did you get your start into music? I'm assuming, like any other Asian person, you probably started at birth.
My bio until my publicist changed it for me started off with, like all good Chinese boys, Darren started playing piano when he was 3. So yes, I did start playing piano when I was 3, and probably the most pivotal thing in my sort of teenage, I mean, there are a lot of pivotal things, right? But the most pivotal thing is that the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra. So I grew up in a city, Edmonton, Alberta, and they had this project called the Young Composers Project. And so when I was 15, I got to write a piece of music for the orchestra, and I got tutored. I got kind of led through the process by the composer in residence there, John Estasio at the time, and John and I are very good friends now. I call him up for random advice things, and we go over, whenever I'm back in town, go over for dinner and bring my kids, and it's lovely. We've got a much more less of a teacher-student relationship than just like friend and colloquial relationship, right? He had scored a film a little bit before and was asking me questions on how to do things. So it's kind of nice that the relationship is, when we recorded in Edmonton, I brought him on board to do to be a producer, to just help listen to scores and to help give feedback. But yeah, so the young, anyway, sorry, blah, blah, blah. The Young Composers Project was really pivotal. At 15, I got to write a piece of music for orchestra, right? And that was huge. I mean, it's hard enough to get a piece of music played by orchestra, as an adult, but as a 15-year-old, you're getting taken through all these steps. And I think that was what really got my bug into it, right? My high school grad, which I will probably deny this to anyone who listens to this video broadcast. We kind of made our own little orchestra, and we did a little like grad song that was orchestrated, and like I mean, like the buzz that you got off that was just huge. And I've always sort of been, I've loved film music. I've always loved film music. So I went to school. I went to college doing composition degree, and little did I know, there was very much avant-garde stuff that we were going to be studying. It was very much sort of contemporary classical new music stuff, and I'm really grateful for that, because that really pushed my boundaries. But I think, notwithstanding a little period between my sophomore and my junior and my senior years, where I kind of had this like snooty, like avant-garde, like, ugh, I don't want to do film music phase, right? I think I realized that this is sort of like, I didn't want to write that sort of music. I want to write music with melodies. And film music really, I want to work with orchestras, and film music kind of provided that outlet for me, right? Film music, I think, also just by definition of it, like, is very well defined. You have to write music for a scene. Someone's telling you where to start and stop, and quite frankly, someone can tell you if they like the music, if they don't like the music, right? And I think I thrive under those constraints, right? Sometimes when someone tells you to constrain down, it allows you to kind of, you're not creatively looking through everything, but they've given you some parameters to go right. And I think that not everyone can do it. Not everyone thrives under those conditions, but I think I do. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
I just blabbed a lot there, so I apologize.
No, you absolutely did. So at which point did you know yourself that you said, you want to do film scores? Like what triggered that?
I think So when I was 12, so we'll uh, kind of chart it, right? When I was 12, this one time at band camp, this one time at band camp, just by nature of being, pretty proficient at my instrument, we were playing this band arrangement of the soundtrack from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, right? And it was still one of my favorite scores today. I think just a brilliant orchestral soundtrack. And I think that was the moment where like, wow, this is really cool. And then just kind of whenever you got to play those cool sound, whenever you played those soundtrack arrangements in band class, those are the ones that I sort of always gravitated to. um, and then the actual writing process, like in high school and orchestra, uh, and that sort of kind of security, you grow a love for soundtrack, and you grow a love for writing music, and that's what you do. I think again, like I said, I went to college, or went to university, and I did the avant-garde route, and then I think for a little bit of time I kind of drank the snake oil and said, oh, film music, and kind of had that air of snottiness. But then I started actually doing film music, and I realized, you know what, like, I'm really good at this, and I really enjoy doing this. Whereas that, sort of the concert music stuff, I was good at it. I was good at it, but I wasn't, if you're to kind of take a look at the bell curve, I wasn't sort of, there are people who are a lot better at that stuff than I am. And I enjoyed it, but not to the same degree that I enjoyed film music. So I guess for me, the decision was easier. And quite frankly, it's easier to make money, make a living doing film music than it is doing concert music, right? So that got the Asian mother seal of approval there.
That's excellent. I was looking at your resume. You have over 100 credits. Which basically is a credit to your own endurance in this industry. How do you keep it fresh for yourself without like getting bored or burn out doing all this?
That's a really good question, actually. I think from a creative perspective, and this is something that I struggle with, right? Because I feel like, God, that sounds and my wife usually keeps me on. Yeah, that sounds a lot like that score that you did, right? I think from a music side of things, just trying to listen to new music as much as you can, like, and just taking, you know, um, you know, I have to walk the dog twice a day, throw on the AirPods, and just try to go like find me some new music, right? And sometimes you just want to listen to stuff that you like, but sometimes you have to just push yourself to listen, like take a gamble and to listen to stuff, and then I'll sort of mark like favorites and stuff, like, oh, that was kind of cool, and then kind of go back and listen to that. um in terms of not getting the first part was like creatively. The second part of the question is, how do you not get burnt out? I think you have to have balance. Um, it's been harder, especially in the pandemic, because you can't do anything, right? You can't do anything. But one of the things that I think is really important for any composer is to just like step away for a little bit. Just to you can, and this goes creatively too. Like, especially when you get into a block or something like that, you can just go to chase yourself in a tail. Like, how many times have you had a cue where you didn't know that the first time, like, ugh, just no, I gotta change it, and then you go version 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then version 9 you go back to version 1, and it all of a sudden works, right? And sometimes you just need that objectivity of being able to step away from it, sleeping it over, and looking at it the night, again, in the morning. And I think we don't, the challenge is for you to recognize when you're spinning your wheels in the dirt, and to come back and do that, because especially when you have, again, like 60 minutes of music to write in 3 weeks, you have to figure that out. And I guess the third part of that equation is to make sure that you have a team that supports you, right? I've got an assistant. I don't mix my own music because I suck at it, right? But trying to find people that who can help take a lot of the non-writing burden. Then for every composer, it's going to be different, right? Some people really want to focus in on the mixing, and that's integral to their way of writing, right? But for me, as a primarily an orchestral composer, classically trained composer, who also sucks at mixing, right? You know, that's something that's really easy for me to give off, and then when I give that off to an engineer, they're also preparing it for delivery and all that stuff like that, so that there's more stuff that I can focus on, right? My assistant helps me by, you know, cleaning up my arrangements, by like spending time the nitty gritty, by adjusting levels and all that stuff. But you know, I've been really lucky in my career that I haven't had to outsource any of the writing part of it, because a lot of times when you're doing, like, you know, these big TV shows and stuff like that, where you're turning out, like, you know, this relentless pace over and over again, you have to you need help with some of the writing, and that's just a given. And I feel grateful for the fact that I haven't had to do that, because I think when that comes, it'll be really hard for me to do that. But just again, making sure that you're surrounded by a team that's going to support you, and that the trust is there, and that trust takes time to build. So,
Excellent. Well, let's talk about your proudest moment. I'm trying to compare to which proud moment, but you won the Canadian Screen Award not once but twice.
I
Let's
did.
let's talk about the 2016 with the Great Human Odyssey. Talk about how was that feeling when you first won the award, and how great was it to work on that project?
Great Human Odyssey. You know, so that was the second time that I got through the award. The first time I lost, right? So, you know, I lost about, what was it, 2, 3, 4 years ago with a project called Lost Year, which is actually a project about the Chinese Canadian diaspora and the immigration, the head tax, the poll tax, and all that stuff. But it was so this is the second time I was nominated, and so listen, like, and this sounds really corny, but it's like the real honor is being nominated, because, like, you know, like I feel the Academy should get this T-shirt. It was an honor. It was an honor just to be nominated, right? So it's like the rejection dummy prizes that you get. But you know, human had significantly higher profile, and that we were also strategic with some of the PR that we did. Like, we had done this little documentary video off of it that quite frankly went all, like, you know, somewhat viral. Like, Vimeo picked it as a staff pick, and it was just, you know, for a Canadian documentary miniseries to have a budget that size, a music budget that size, and that we could do a lot of special things. So I think, you know, I won't lie and say that I wasn't half expecting it, but on the other hand, you never know, right? And so there's a certain amount of nervousness that you get with it. And this is, like, you know, after, like, you know, the Emmys and the Oscars and all these awards, they really look glamorous, but at the end of the day, like, it's just like, oh my God, there's like 54 awards we have to get through in like 3 hours. And like seriously, if you look at my program book, I notched them down, like, in, like, I think the 5, so you know how many we were, like, you know, in the middle. And you have to be careful you don't drink too much wine, because if you actually do get called up, you know, you don't want to make an ass out of yourself. So it was nerve-wracking, but I think that it was like, it was incredible. Like, it was just what's so special about these awards, that it's your peers in your industry that's recognizing that the work that you do is good, right? On a more comical note, for a Chinese mother, it's like, oh wow, a shiny, you know, you won a trophy, and then, you know, very Joy Luck Club of my mom feel like, you know, send out the mass email to her friend saying, just, you know, Darren won this award, right? and then so more obliquely she goes like, so does this mean, like, you get any cash for it, or do you, like, no, it's just, it's an honor, like, it's not about the money, right? But it was nerve-wracking, but I think the honor of being voted best score by your peers, and, you know, notwithstanding all the politics and all that stuff, is huge. And it is, you know, it's sort of, you know, if I'm going to kind of trace my trace my career development into pivotal moments. You're right. That's absolutely one of the pivotal moments there.
I listened to a couple of the scores on your website. Piano, orchestra, and even a chorus. I think
Yep. Yep.
I heard that was quite
Yep.
ambitious for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's with both Human Odyssey and Echoes, and I've gone to work with choir. I think one more time. Other than that, it's sort of one of those things where you're really lucky when you have a budget to let you do that. At least at my stage of the career, right? Your career, right? Like, if you're John Williams or if you're Hans Zimmer, like, fine, yeah, just book them for next Tuesday, right? But for the kind of budget, the kind of projects that I'm working on, it's a real treat to be able to do that. And Human Odyssey was the first time that I got a chance to work with chorus, and the choir that we used. We were doing it back in Edmonton for tax credit reasons, but the choir was Pro Choral Canada, which is just one of the most fantastic groups of musicians, professional group of musicians that I've ever worked with, right? And this is my first time working with choir, I guess, since college, and first time working with choir in a studio setting, and I guess the difference between working in a concert setting and working in a studio setting, they're seeing that music for essentially the first time, uh, when they step on stage, and you're making changes and you're doing everything like that, and just the amount of collaboration, the collaborative spirit with them, and just their musicianship was just incredible, and just working with these like fantastic voices in this beautiful concert hall was just amazing. You'll forgive me if I sound really gushy, but it was really cool. Like it was, to be able to do that for the first time, and then you kind of when you're done everything, you take stock and you're sitting in the booth and you're listening to stuff and you're like, God, that sounds so good, right? And like you talk about burnout and like how do you keep those creative juices? Those are the reasons why you keep on doing what you do, is to be able to just like take it all in.
So was it the same feeling to win the award again for Equus Story of the Horse? I mean, winning the award the second time. I mean, it's
there's still some apprehension there. I think that in my mind, Equus was a step up in terms of score for me, like in terms of achievement. You're still nervous. You're still nervous because you would like to win, and I think if you dig long and hard, either online or on my Facebook, you'll see my acceptance speech, which I'm trying to thank like a list of like 80 people in like 2 minutes, right? you know, but it is nerve wracking, and there's a little bit of disappointment with Equus because I guess from a personal level, I feel that Equus for me represents an evolution of my writing. Like I feel not that that's a better score, but I feel that I feel that there was I had more to offer on that score, right? Like that I there was less for Niobe and I, Niobe being the director producer, there's less back and forth of no, this doesn't work. Like we knew how to work with each other at this point, right? Like and I felt like that there were just more things that were like we landed in the pocket that just worked better to picture. So I won't lie and say that again with that 50% of like yeah I think I'm gonna get it right, because Equus in terms of level of production from the CBC and the documentary community, there's a lot of buzz about it. People were talking about it, and we did again. We were strategic with the PR that we did, and everything like that. But it was still really cool. And for human, my wife didn't come to the show with me because we were doing a live show with Orchestra Human. Just 2 weeks after. They said, well, she said, I can only do one of these. I said, come to the live show with Orchestra because that I'm going to be doing something for sure. This is a dinner party, right? But with Equus, she was there, and just to have her there, because she's my biggest fan, to have her being there, supporting me and just like kind of there for the ride is really cool. So
that is awesome. So for the future for yourself, because I know you have a couple of projects that's actually listed, like Cinema Sleep, that you're
Yeah,
finishing up on, and so on.
yeah.
How do you choose your projects, and do you have like a wish list of films that you would love to score?
um, you know, I it's funny because if you look at the making of the music the music of Equus, right? I I think I say something like, it doesn't get any better than this, right? Like, you got an orchestra and a choir, and I really think that when as a composer, like, just being able to realize my musical vision unencumbered, that's what I want to do, right? We're still on a very tight budget with Echoes and Human Odyssey, even though we had the orchestra, we had the choir, and we had the Great Hall and all of that stuff. But if people ask, like, what is their dream project, I think the dream project is honestly doing something where I get to work with a big orchestra and a big choir, and like I can do whatever I want to do with it, right? So uh, I would love to kind of work more in the studio film world where there's bigger budgets, where again, that's not, I'm not encumbered by the resources that I can afford. So that being said, I love a good, like, sci-fi space opera, like, Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, big Battlestar Galactica fan. Historical stuff where I get to use a big orchestra and choir again, all that stuff. I love that stuff. So
It sounds great. And then, with already 100 under your belt, I don't see a reason to get those really big projects down the road.
well, hopefully, knock on wood. So.
Well, let me wrap up one more thing with you, Darren. I know you sort of answered it before, but because of the fact that we're living on in crazy times right now, how are you staying sane during this time?
Really good question. So I adopted a road bike. I adopted a road bike, and it took me a little while to get, like, it was in the summertime, but I try to take off every day, do a 15-mile ride, we talk about disconnecting for a little bit. I'll throw in podcasts, or I'll throw in new music or something like that, and just really good friend of mine got me these bone-in headphones where I can actually, they don't go in the ears, but they go beside the ears, so you can hear music. It's not the best sound quality, but you can still, it's pretty damn good. But you can also hear people yelling at you to get off the road or to get out of the way or things like that. But I think that's been my sort of sanity thing. In the summertime, the family, we would go off to the beach a fair bit. In the wintertime, we're trying to find the right balance of my son is learning how to ski, and I'm a snowboarder, so it's trying to find the right balance between going when it's not crowded and that, but just kind of getting out of the music, getting out of the job stuff, trying to take whatever little victories that we can get, and little mini getaways or whatever we can do. So that's really what my wife is a physician, so she's kind of in the thick of the COVID stuff too. So yeah, but the road bike has been essential. The road bike has been essential. I think I spent more money on either upgrading or fixing my road bike. I got into a big accident in July and August, so the road bike got totaled a little bit. So I had to replace a frame. Like, fixing it cost me more than the actual bike cost myself. But the actual, like, it's just that sanity of just getting out there, doing something completely different, like where you have to focus your mind on something else, is great. So yeah, that's what keeps me sane.
That's excellent. Well, hey, congratulations once again, Darren. I look forward to hearing about more of your projects in the future. Let's do this again.
That's great. Thank you so much, Gabe. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank
Hey,
you.
not a problem. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Take care.